Everybody here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay. Great.
No, somebody's missing.
No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Everyone's here.
If you give me 1 sec, I'll go ahead and start the webinar.
Okay.
And we'll be live in just a moment. Okay, we're good to go whenever you're ready.
Great. All right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. We will start the study session for September 3rd, and I will call the meeting to order at 5:30. And this meeting will be conducted in accordance with State of California Executive Order N2920, dated March 17th, 2020, a long time ago. All members of the City Council are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting live may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast Channel 26. As noted on the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment period for the item by signing up at mountainview.gov/cc_speakers or by phone by dialing 669-900-9128 and entering webinar ID 973-3516-1718. Any emails received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the City Council. Emails received after 5 p.m. will not be read during the meeting, but will be entered into the record for the meeting. And could we now have roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Hicks.
Here.
Councilmember Matichek.
Here.
Councilmember McAllister. He's on.
I'm here. Yay.
Councilmember Ramirez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kamei.
Here.
Mayor Abikoga.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are all present, and we'll go on to our study session 3.1, the Rental Housing Committee applicant interviews. And let's see, council discussion. So we wanted to start off by, actually, I think, don't we normally start off with public comment, so why don't we do that? If there's anyone in the attendee box who would like to make a public comment, please raise. Sorry, that's my assistant. Please raise your blue hand, and then if you're on the phone, please hit *9. So I see 2 hands. I'm going to say 2 minutes, please, today. 3. So we'll start with Salim Damerdji. Please unmute yourself. Although I don't have that button today to unmute them.
One moment, Mayor. Let me just make sure. Sorry about that, Mayor. Do you have access now?
Yeah, Thank you. All right, so we'll start with Salim Damerdji, and if you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Council. Yeah, I really look forward to the interviews today. Personnel is policy, and I hope we pick the right person for the job. I hope in particular that we appoint someone who will implement the spirit of CSFRA as well as the letter of that law, and someone who believes in rent control. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to David Peters. Please unmute yourself, David.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Sorry,
Thank
I was
you.
muted.
So I'm speaking on behalf of MVCPRA, and although our coalition is focused on policing, we understand that our fight is linked to the fight for housing justice. Both are rooted in institutionalized racism, which we are all working to dismantle. And that is why we support our fellow neighbors in asking the City Council to appoint a member to the Rental Housing Committee who will protect rent control in Mountain View. In our principles, we articulate the need to amplify the voices of communities most targeted by institutionalized racism. These are the communities that rely on the just implementation of rent control by the RHC in order to continue living here. If the council votes to appoint a member to the RHC who will go against the will of the voters in the community and undermine rent control from the inside out, the council will be reinforcing the institutional racism that has caused our Latinx population to drop dramatically in recent years. MVCPRA stands in solidarity with our neighbors and calling on you to appoint a member of the RHC who is committed to fairly protecting rent control. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to Eva Tang. Please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi there.
Thank you for giving us this time to speak. I am looking forward to hearing from the individual candidates today. I am really hoping that you will appoint somebody who is a member of the renting community, as well as somebody from as well as a representative from our mobile housing community, as I feel they are severely underrepresented within the CSFRA and also within this committee. And I hope that whoever you appoint will also uphold parts of the institution that will allow for the diversity that we love and enjoy in Mountain View, as well as protect those that are typically disenfranchised. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members in the attendee box wishing to speak? Yes. Johannes Munzel, please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Yoho speaking, Mountain View resident as of recently. I strongly urge council to appoint only people who support rent control to the committee that is administering rent control, and in particular also to only appoint renters, whether that's space rent for a mobile home or for an apartment. Doesn't matter, but it should be, people who are affected by this issue making the decisions here. Thanks. Yield my time.
Thank you. We'll go to Sebastian. Please unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I think everyone who spoke before is, kind of touched on what's going through my head too, but I'd really like to echo the need to pick someone who is in favor of rent control and can help maintain our city's diversity and, not see it further decline, as we've seen certain populations like Latinx population decrease over the years. So we don't want that to continue to happen. We need to reverse that and reverse the gentrification that's happening in our city. So someone who is a renter and at the very least will maintain rent control and be an advocate for it needs to be picked in order to maintain our city as it is and not let it further deteriorate and favor only the rich.
Thank you. Anyone else in the attendee box wishing to speak? I don't see any more blue hands, so we'll go to, are there any members on the phone wishing to speak? Nope. All right, I will close public comment then and bring it back to the council. And we wanted to spend some time discussing the process and interview questions. And you should have all received attachment one is our sample questions that we've used in the past. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, probably can't ask all of them. So I wanted to see your thoughts on which ones, or if you have others too, open to discussion on other questions. So anyone? Yes, Allison, Councilmember Hicks.
So I thought the applications were really complete and don't need to ask a lot of questions, but the 2 that rose to the top to me were B, on best practices, and D, regarding skills and experiences. But I'd be very open to any other ones. Those were just the ones that rose to the top for me. Thank you.
I'm sorry, B, and what was the other one?
D, about skills and experiences.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilmember Ramirez?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm comfortable with those. And I'd also like to suggest G, what is the role or purpose of the RHC? I've found this is a question I think it's been asked in a couple of other contexts, EPC in particular, and it's always very enlightening to hear how folks perceive the role that they're planning to serve on or hoping to serve on. And then the only other thing I would recommend is we do have a candidate who has a voting record who has served in this capacity, and I think it's important to make a distinction in the kinds of questions that we might ask that candidate compared to candidates who have not had the opportunity to serve. I think we found that there's we can gain some valuable knowledge, I think, and sort of getting their sense of maybe particular topics that they felt were challenging, that they might be, be where we might learn how they took on a particularly challenging topic, or learned about, how they handle. I'm not doing a very good job here. In other words, I think it would be good to ask a question about their service and their voting record, because there may be some valuable insight that we can get from that.
So my question to the city attorney, are we able to do that, or do we need to stick with the same questions to all the candidates?
It raises an interesting issue. My recommendation would be to keep the questions as similar as possible for all the candidates. And for example, the purpose would be to maintain a fair playing field for all of the candidates to answer. And I do see some perhaps latitude in question D. That question would give the candidate who has served on the RHC an opportunity to expand on those experiences, but I would hesitate to design different line of questioning for the candidate who has served on the RHC. It could possibly provide a advantage or unfair playing field. So I wouldn't recommend designing specific questions based on a person's background.
Thank you. I did see also maybe C could be elaborated upon. But
yes, and you raise a good point. Within each question, council members are allowed to drill down or ask individual candidates sort of sub questions for clarification. So perhaps that's an opportunity, as opposed to designing specific questions. And to your example or proposed question, Councilmember Ramirez, the other candidates wouldn't have a voting record, so it would immediately have a kind of a different basis for comparison. So if there are issue questions that address what you're interested in learning, those could be asked of all the candidates, such as a candidate's views on a particular aspect of the CSFRA or issue related to rent stabilization.
Does that help, Councilmember Ramirez, or you have some?
I think that's fair. Maybe I don't want to belabor the point too much, because I appreciate what the city attorney is sharing. I think I feel like in the past there has been a distinction made between candidates with prior service and new candidates, and maybe one way we can suss that out is using one of the pre-written questions here, and just ask the candidate who has served or who is currently serving to maybe provide examples that are more concrete than we would expect from somebody who has not served before. I would be satisfied with that.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Matachek?
Thank you. So I am also interested in G, as Councilmember Ramirez noted. That's always a very interesting, enlightening question to ask. And I think in the past, we've also asked, how do you see the RHC interacting with the council? And I'd like to add that one. And I'm also interested in F. Given the discussions about seismic retrofit and some of the other topics, I'd like to add F. But I do feel like we're getting maybe too many questions here to answer in 15 minutes. And so maybe we're going to have to talk about how we prioritize these. Thanks.
Thank you. So your new question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the council? Is that accurate? Okay, great. Thank you. Councilmember McAllister?
Yeah, I like the idea of G again. I was the one that sort of got the people on planning commission, you get an idea of the role, and it was interesting how many people didn't really understand it. And I think on G, asking about RHC, there's quite a bit of the public doesn't really have a clear understanding of how the board is made up. You hear people saying 7 members, or you got to have everybody that's pro rent control. And so I think it's important that we help, if the people that are applying, that will give us better understanding if they really truly understand the role that they're supposed to be doing. So I think that G has definitely got to be in there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? So we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we add Councilmember Matachek's new question, I think we asked, we're giving 3 minutes per answer, but probably want to do a minute or so opening and a minute closing. So we could pare this down to 4, or I could just ask them to answer in 2 minutes. We want to do all 5. Yes, Councilmember Hicks.
So I had mentioned B on best practices and D on skills and experiences, but because nobody else had mentioned B on best practices, and some of the others may overlap that, I'm willing to take that off unless somebody else was really hoping to answer to that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fine with D, F, G, and Councilmember Matachek's new I. Does that sound good with everyone, or happy to entertain cutting down answers to add another question? Nope. Okay, so those 4 questions, good. All right, and probably maybe we can start with G. I was thinking order, so we could go G, D, F, or G. We can do G, I, D, and F. Sorry, I've got a lot going on here outside. And would you like to rotate the questions so everybody asks the question at or I'm happy, or do you want me to just do it? Oh yeah, just do it. All right, great. Okay, good. So anything else we should discuss?
A so-called AV measure in Yambu.
I don't know who that is. If not, I guess we actually have a little time. I don't know if the applicants are here, that we could start early. If folks are willing to.
Sure. Yes, the 6 o'clock, Ms. Haines-Li is here. If we want to, I can move her over to the panel.
Yes, if she's ready to go, that'd be great.
Great.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today, Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And if you don't mind, we finished our part early, so we'd like to go ahead and get started if that's okay with you.
Sure, that sounds good. Is my audio okay? I don't
Yes.
want it to be fading in and out.
You sound great.
Excellent.
Great. So we'd love to have you start with an opening statement for a minute or two, and then we have 4 questions for you. And if you could just take 2 or 3 minutes to answer each one, we'd appreciate it. There may be some clarifying questions along the way as well, but we have 4 standard questions. And then if you'd like to do a closing at the end, that would be great too.
Excellent. I can definitely do that.
Great. And anytime you're ready to go.
So, hello, everyone. I am Nicole Haines-Li. I am currently the alternate member of the Rental Housing Committee. I've been serving as a voting member, as you are all likely aware, since committee member Honey's resignation in January. And it's been a really great experience. When I had applied initially to join the RHC, I was unsure of what role I would get, if any. And I think starting in an alternate role was very developmental for me and allowed me to really get a little bit of time to fully get my arms around the issue, the dynamics of the committee itself, and really just get fully immersed in the issues that we deal with from meeting to meeting. And that has been a wonderful experience. And so now I'm here before you, interested in potentially taking the open role as a full voting member, moving from alternate to voting member.
Great, thank you. The first question we have for you is, what is the role or purpose of the RHC?
So the role of the RHC is truly to administer the CSFRA. We are charged with an interesting position in that we, at times, have policymaking items come before us, and at other times we may have appeals come before us, and we really are trying to interpret and ensure that we have promoted the spirit of the regulation, not just necessarily the letter. But while doing that, we have to be very careful to ensure that we're taking care of all our stakeholders. Rent control, when it is a term that is bandied about, has some connotations. And I don't think that the role of the RHC is to play into some of those more negative connotations. Actually, I think it's very important for the RHC to position itself as a fair organization, as a fair committee that is truly trying to administer this law, rather than punitively go after any one group or overlook any one group. And so it's a balancing act, but it is something that is very, very important. And it's actually partially why I enjoy how the RHC has been structured relative to other committees that may be subcommittees, just due to the nature of what we do. I think it's created a lot of interesting synergies for us, and has really given us a interesting playing field.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next question, what particular skills or experiences make you qualified to work towards reasonable and informed decisions that pertain to those? Oh, this is actually, I guess, part of C. I'm just going to just maybe modify it and say, what particular skills or experiences make you qualified to do the work?
Sure. So in addition to having been on the committee as the alternate, so I have a little bit deeper view of the inner workings and some of the preparation work that goes into preparing for our meetings. We do all our meetings in public. We're very respectful of the Brown Act. That being said, there is individual solo work that goes into preparing for your meetings. And personally, I am in the financial services industry, and I occupy an interesting role in that I am in risk and compliance. So I am in between the shall I and may I space. That is a similar space to where the RHC attempts to point its policymaking. We have to look at, may I do such and so thing under the terms of the CFSRA? And then we also need to look at, should I do, i.e., is it prudent to do? And take into consideration all attributes of when we are making a decision to ensure it is prudent and respectful of every stakeholder in our community, because we have a lovely, diverse community, and we don't want to lose that community. It takes everyone from all walks of life to maintain that. And so I believe that, given my day-to-day life is helping people navigate that space, I try to bring that to my time on the RHC. Additionally, I did work for a private equity real estate company for a few years when I lived in Dallas, and I did have my real estate license active at that time. Now, granted, I don't have a real estate license in California. I've not been active in that space for some time, but I do understand the basics, and at least well enough that the state of Texas thought I was able to be licensed. I guess we could ask them if that was a good decision or not. But in all honesty, that has given me a interesting lens because I have familiarity with many of the concepts that we deal with.
Great, thank you. And the next question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the council?
I love this question. So as I referenced earlier, I think that the current structure is a very strong structure for the RHC working with the council. When Measure D was up and being drafted, I very much enjoyed participating in the discussions of what we may communicate from the RHC to council regarding what may be put in there. I feel that if we were to be, say, an advisory board or an advisory committee, we would potentially, in the eyes of the public, not have the same independent light that we do in our current structure. That all being said, it was very important to me to make sure that certain things that, though Measure D did not pass, were in Measure D, specifically around the ability of the council to remove us from our appointments, and also codifying that we will not pay ourselves. Those two components were incredibly important to me, that we be in unison with the rest of the city council and city advisory committees on. So I actually was very pleased when we made the decision to codify that recently. I think it's very healthy, and I think it helps to keep us focused on our mission, which is administering the CSFRA fairly to all stakeholders.
Great, thank you. And the last question is, how would you encourage maintenance, these are for the properties, beyond the minimum for rental properties within the parameters of the CSFRA?
Sure. So this is always a difficult issue because there is concern in individuals' brains that if one does not get a return that they feel is reasonably appropriate on their investment, they may decide not to make additional capital contributions, i.e. maintenance, into that investment beyond whatever is required by law. We recently, in our last meeting, looked at some regulations or potential of making some regulations that may allow our housing providers to pass on some of those costs to the tenants if those improvements or those activities materially benefit the tenants. I'm very strongly supportive of this. I do think that capital injections are needed from time to time, and I personally believe, as an individual who does rent property in Mountain View but is not covered under the CSFRA currently, and would be unlikely to be even in the future, given the structure of my lease. I believe it's important that housing providers and tenants be on the same page around improvements. We have made multiple improvements in our unit after speaking with our landlord and working with him, and it's been a very fair and a very comfortable process where we're both on the same side of the table. And I think getting that by allowing some level of pass through is important, because I actually think that we can have unified interest there in this regard. But currently, there may be concern in the community that it's difficult to do anything beyond the mandatory or minimum maintenance.
Great. Any clarifying questions from council members for Ms. Livesay? No? All right. Would you like to provide a closing statement?
Sure. So thank you all for your time and visiting with me today. I really hope that I was able to answer your questions thoroughly, provide answers that helped you to understand my position on the issues and what I would bring to the table if I was a full voting member of the RHC. I remain open if anyone has any closing questions. Otherwise, I will let you get back to your rest of your meeting and move on to the next candidate. I don't want to monopolize all the time. Thank you. And everybody stay healthy, stay safe.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for making the time to come in and chat with us. We will probably make a decision this evening. This is a study session, so then we will need to ratify our decision at a council meeting. So you will learn soon. You will know shortly. We'll notify you shortly of our decision. Thank you very much again.
Definitely. Thank you all.
Take care. All right. Our next applicant is Richard Yu. Let's see if he's with us yet. I don't think I see him.
It doesn't look like he's on the line quite yet. His interview time was 6:15, so we're a little early. We were going to reach out to him to see if he was available, but if available sooner. So Wanda's working on that right now. But if we wanted to move on,
if we could move on to Weihang Fan. I see her in our box if she's ready to go.
Okay, one moment. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. How are you, Mr. Fan? Welcome and thank you so much for making the time to interview with us. Thank you for applying for the RHC position. We wanted to, if you'd like to offer an opening statement for a couple of minutes. We also have 4 questions we'd like to ask you. We're asking everyone the same questions. There may be some clarifying questions from council members along the way. And then if you could, if you'd like to provide a closing statement, that would be great. So if you would like to start at any time, please welcome.
All right. Hello, council members. I'm Weihang or Frank. I'm a relatively new resident who just moved here after graduating college, and I currently rent a condo that is not covered by CS FRA. So when I was in college, I was a member of student government and allocated funds to student organizations. So that's why I wanted to continue doing public service. And I also frequently read like policies and meeting minutes, including that of the RHC, city council, and regional boards, like Caltrain and VTA. And I've noticed that from some of the meetings I've watched that sometimes the RHC does not very much acknowledge public comments or refer to them, even though RHC is a less formal committee than, say, the city council. So I guess I'm hoping that I can bring a new perspective to the RHC and help engage better with members of the public that don't necessarily attend RHC meetings or city council meetings.
Great, thank you. So we'll start with our first question. What is the role or purpose of the RHC?
So ultimately, the RHC is pretty much a administrative organization, and it's not its purpose to change the meaning or sort of go around the FRA to achieve its policy goals. I think the RHC should just mostly be an adjudicating body for, say, appeals, as well as implementing regulations and policies that make it easier for both renters and landlords to follow its stipulations and basically make it so that everyone gets the most out of the CSFRA, even though it is well known that rent control can often create impediments to, say, maintenance or other issues of rentals.
Next question, what particular skills or experiences make you qualified to do the work?
So as I mentioned before, I was the VP of Finance of the student government at my university, County Mellon University, where I chaired an appointed committee that allocated about $2 million in funds to student organizations. And we also audited the spending of those funds by those organizations. So by being a part of this process, I had some experience with appointed committees and that are appointed by elected bodies that have sort of a moderate amount of power and responsibility. And I'm pretty familiar with the dynamics of an appointed committee by an elected body, which can often become complicated because the people who are appointed might offer different viewpoints, and that may or may not coincide with the views of the elected body that appoints the body. And I have some experience coordinating those viewpoints and reaching a productive conclusion. And of course, this comes with experience managing financial records as well. Yeah.
Next question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the council?
So ultimately, even though the RHC is appointed by the city council, I think the RHC is ultimately an independent body, and it doesn't necessarily have to hold the same opinions and reach the same conclusions as the city council and say the city attorney, which it did regarding the mobile home issue. And I think that the RHC should mostly operate as its own body, and if needed, it could hold joint study sessions with the city council. But yeah, I think because the CSFI stipulated that RHC is a independent body, I think primarily the interactions should be limited and through formal channels, like perhaps the RHC members could make public comments at city council meetings, but otherwise, I believe it should be fairly limited.
Great. And then last question, how would you encourage maintenance beyond the minimum for rental properties within the parameters of the CSFRA?
So legislation like the CSFRA obviously create impediments to landlords' willingness to maintain properties. And I mean, the first thing I want to talk about is the recent issue of capital improvements amortization, which basically is a way of streamlining the process of the discretionary process of this RHC deciding on petitions to increase rent by landlords, because ultimately, if you think about the financials of landlords, the rent of an individual renter is much less significant compared to the adjustment of the rent to the renter rather than to the landlord. So ultimately, I believe in order to incentivize landlords to perform maintenance, it is necessary to make the process easier and perhaps implement regulations that constitute unanimous approval or consenting approval by both the renters and landlords, such that the landlord needs to go through less loopholes and jump through less hoops in order to get the necessary approvals to increase rent and perform the necessary maintenance. And yeah, I think within the scope of the RHC and the CSFRA, there was not that much ability for the RHC to implement policies that increase incentives to maintenance, because most of it is set in stone in the law, and the most it can do is to implement regulations that streamline the process to such that it is easier to do petitions of upward adjustment for capital improvements and the maintenance.
Great. Those are our questions. Are there any other clarifying questions from council members? No. Alrighty. If you'd like to offer a closing statement, that would be great.
Yeah. I guess this is the first position in a municipal committee I've applied for. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for your time. And I hope you consider my application. Yeah. Have a nice day.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Fan. And we will be probably making a decision this evening. This is a study session, so it will be a recommendation to the council, and which we will have to vote on at a council meeting. But we will let you know our decision shortly. So again, thank you very much for making time to join us, and please take care.
Thank you.
And we are actually still early, but I think I saw Richard Yu. So if Mr. Yu would like to join us, we'd love to start.
Yes, one moment. Let's see. All right, there we go.
Great. Good evening, Mr. Yu. Thank you for joining us. Oh, yay, I get to see your face.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Doing well as we can be, right?
All things considered, yes.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for making time to join us, and thank you for applying to our RHC. We are asking our applicants this evening to offer an opening statement if you'd like, and then we have 4 questions for you. There may be some clarifying questions from council members, and then if you'd like to offer a closing statement, that would be great. So if you could take maybe a couple of minutes on each, that would be very ideal. So
yeah,
yes, whenever you're ready to start, happy to have you start.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Richard Yu. I was actually born and raised in Mountain View. So I was able to grow up through sort of the change, and definitely was able to see the change sort of pre and post like tech. And so I went to Block, which is like borderline Mountain View Los Altos school. And while I was at Block, I was actually on at the time, it was called the Mayor's Youth Committee. It was run, I think, by Matt Neely at the time, who was also assistant principal in Mountain View. Now it's the Youth Advisory Committee. And so I was on that for about 2 years at Block. And within that, we planned, obviously, as you guys know, the Mayor's Youth Conference, and then helped with starting up the teen center, or like sort of redoing all of that stuff. So then I went to Mountain View High School, stayed local, and was part of a club called Unidos, which provided after school tutoring for an ESL elementary school. I think, oh my God, it's Castro Elementary School, I think, is the one right around the corner. And so we did that every week. I sort of helped run organizing, getting all the volunteers together, organizing sort of the fundraisers to get swag and everything for all of the students going and volunteering with the kids. And then for college, I didn't stay super local, but I went to UC Davis. And so there I was a managerial economics major, and I was involved in an organization called Camp Kesem, which is a camp for kids whose parents have had cancer. And so while I was there, I was a director and basically involved in every aspect of Camp Kesem. And we are completely student funded. So we had to run fundraising, operations, admin, recruiting, training, and everything within that sort. So within that organization, when I first started, we had about 20, 25 campers with about 15 to 20 counselors. And then by the time I left and graduated, we had over 120 campers with about 55 to 60 counseling staff. But yeah, so that's a little bit about myself.
Thanks for that. So we'll start with the questions then. And
Okay.
our first question is, what is the role or purpose of the RHC?
So I think the role of the RHC is to be a fair, neutral group that is responsible to establish the rules and regulations of the CSFRA, and then also be ones to create policies to also enforce those, as well as follow up. And I think they're also responsible to ensure that there's fair market value rates for all renters within the community, and also being proactive to research and conduct sort of, maybe like surveys, or just sort of like be proactive in making sure that the community is happy and that things don't sort of come at a surprise. Yeah. And also be sort of like, I guess, the group that's sort of that liaison and that middle person between the two, between like a landlord and tenant group.
Great. Next question. What particular skills or experiences make you qualified for the work, to do the work?
So I think in terms of like being fair and running organizations, like when I was running with Camp Kesem, I was able to be able to see every side in terms of running businesses from young. And also, since I was probably in like middle school, I've helped my family manage. They have a 5-unit rental in downtown Mountain View. So I've been helping them do that and sort of being that. My parents came to the US when they were in like their teens or like early 20s. So I was born and raised here. And so as growing up, I was always that child that they're like, hey, can you help do this? Can you help do that? So I was really able to learn a lot of things and really learn from like the tenants that we had there and sort of see like what worked for them, what didn't work with them, and sort of do what we could to keep a good relationship, to try to keep the tenants there long term. And so within that, really learned a lot about just like property management and things like that. And then obviously when I went to college, I was able to see the flip side of everything, of being a renter and the nuances of working with a landlord and property management companies and things like that. So I was really able to understand and see the disconnect. And for me personally, with the tenants that we have, really use that to sort of mediate a relationship. So that way it is a two-way street. And so I think that also within post-college, I was involved in an organization called SOAR for Youth. It provides academic advocacy for foster youth in the Bay Area. And I started helping with operations on that side too. And so within that, because I was working very closely with the kids as mentors and also working on the operations side, I sort of had to draw a fine line between not sort of like favoring one side or the other when making decisions, and really looking at things with all the data, all the stats, and making the best decision all around for everyone, and not just those involved, but the entire community as well.
Great. Next question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the City Council?
So from what I understand, the RFC is supposed to be its own separate like body or entity, and not necessarily supposed to be governed or ruled under the City Council. So I think it would more so be either like collaborations or whatever the proper protocol processes it is for interactions. But I think that the RHC in general should have its own sort of checks and balances within itself, and not necessarily like report, but could like reach out to the council for advice or sort of consultation, but not necessarily like take direction. But like I said, whatever the proper protocol is for that at the time is what should be followed.
Okay, great. And then, let's see, last question. How would you encourage maintenance beyond the minimum for rental properties within the parameters of CSFRA?
So how would I encourage
maintenance?
So maintenance within properties beyond minimum? Yeah. So I think a big thing about property, like just encouraging property maintenance, is also educating the owners on the importance of maintenance, and understanding both sides, right? Because the more well you maintain a property, the better condition it stays. And then ultimately sort of the less dollar amount it comes out of your pocket, right? Because I think you have to look at every situation from the opposite side. And I know that a lot of landlords always look at sort of the dollar amount, and it's sort of just like, look, if you maintain the properties correctly and you do the right things and you follow the recommended protocol, then at the end of the day, you're going to spend less money because you're not going to have these big issues that blow up and have X, Y, and Z. So I think creating a training program to be able to educate the landlords on that side, because it is sort of a two-way partnership for a landlord and tenants to be successful, right? And then I think that just thinking outside the box, I know there's in the past have been programs where there's been like grants allocated for like energy efficient savings or X, Y, and Z things if you make improvements around either a rental property or a home. I don't know the specifics because I've never actually taken advantage of them, but I think in terms of like being able to encourage like maintenance beyond minimum, if the city is able to have like a budget for things like that, then it'd be cool to come up with some type of like maintenance plan program where there's some type of incentive for property owners. And I don't know if that's possible, but it could be even like partnerships that we create with different companies, and you get services for doing something like that. And it's not necessarily dollar amounts, but I think there's a lot of ways to encourage maintenance without sort of saying, this is the law, you have to, or we're going to figure out a way to force you. I think if you do a lot of just educating the property owners, I think, and potentially even providing incentives, I think that comes with that route of everything. Did that sort of answer that question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, do any council members have any clarifying questions for Mr. Yu? No? Okay then, would you like to offer a closing comment?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to thank you guys all for your time. I know this is sort of weird having to do this on Zoom, but I'm definitely excited to potentially have the opportunity to join the RHC to bring a different perspective, and be able to sort of keep that relationship between tenants and landlords in Mountain View happy and successful, and bring back and sort of keep and maintain the culture of Mountain View that we had when I grew up as much as we can without having it blow up too quickly.
Great. Well, thank you again for making time to join us, and
Of course.
for your interest. And this is a study session, so we will make a recommendation most likely this evening, and then that needs to be approved by us at a regular council meeting. But we will let you know soon what our
right.
is. So great.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Stay safe, everyone.
You too.
Bye.
Please stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
All right. Wow, we're even more ahead of schedule. But I think I see Hank Dempsey. If he's ready to go, we'd love to have him join us.
Yes, I'll bring him in. And apologies, Councilmember Clark. That was my fault. I moved you over for a moment. Sorry about that. Just one moment.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Councilmember Matchek, did you have a question or comment?
You know, I was going to say this right before we spoke with Mr. Yu, but I was going to ask if it is possible if we could see the applicants.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be able to see them live, see their expressions, and have a real person there. So if the others don't mind, we'd love to see you.
I will ask them if they are not on video, if they could turn it on.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you for that suggestion. Let's see, are we...
Mr. Dempsey should be on in just a moment. There we go.
Good evening, Mr. Dempsey. Welcome. Oh, thank you. Thank you for getting your video on. Thank you so much.
Back, so.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time to interview with us and for your interest in the RHC. We would, if you'd like to start with an opening statement, spend a couple minutes on that, and then we have 4 questions we're asking of all the applicants. And then if you'd like to close with a closing statement, that would be great. So whenever you're ready, happy to hear from you.
I hope everybody can be okay here. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, council members. I appreciate the time. My name is Weihang Fan. I'm a resident of City Park.
I'm sorry, we're having a little trouble. You're breaking up. Is there?
Oh, I'm getting the same. I'll just talk a little slower if that helps.
Okay. Sure.
It'll be okay. So I use this as a relatively, I'm new to this. I'm not a rental law expert by any stretch of the imagination. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So, essentially, an indicated generalist. In fact, I could do an already if that helps.
Sorry, it's still breaking up and like an echo. I don't know if you're.
If it'll help, I'd happy to drop off video. I can give a call back and get in the queue, and then in 20 minutes or something. Hopefully that'll be
actually ahead of schedule. So yes, whenever you're ready to come back, we'll.
That's okay. My apologies.
No worries. Thank you. This is just our world that we live in right now. So great.
I'll see you in a minute.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see our next applicant yet, so I do see Alex Brown. Could we see if Alex would you be ready to interview with us?
I'll go ahead and move him over.
Thank you.
Now he's been in touch this evening, so I think he should be all set.
Great. Alex, are you? Oh, there you are. Great. Welcome. I hope you don't mind. We're trying to move things along, and with all the technical issues, we wanted to start you, if you don't mind, start you a little early. So thank you again for your interest in the RHC and for, oh, are you able to?
Okay, wait, can you hear me okay?
Yes, great.
Okay, I just want to do a sound check first.
Awesome. Thank you for, thanks for your interest in the RHC, and thanks for making time to interview with us. If you'd like to start with an opening statement for a couple minutes, and then we have 4 questions. We're asking the same of everyone. And then if you want to close out with a statement, that would be great. And please feel free to start when you're ready.
Awesome. Yeah. I did not prepare an opening statement. I think I know most of you by now. I've been in Mountain View for a little over 7 years, and please stop me if I start breaking up. I moved to Mountain View. I got into a mobile home. I got to know a lot of people in my community, but also in the surrounding Mountain View community. And I saw that with the changes that came just as the decade developed, that a lot of people were suffering. And in 2016, when people came together to try to fight to stabilize their communities, to try to prevent displacement, to try to keep people in their homes, I was happy and I was proud of the community. And I've tried to help organize all of my neighbors. I've worked with a lot of organizations throughout the city and surrounding cities in trying to make a difference, in trying to make the world a better place and trying to help people. And I think that the CSFRA is one significant tool that we have to try to keep people in their homes, and to also just to keep things going at an even good pace where everyone can succeed. Everyone has a chance. People are less likely to be shocked and by being forced to move because they cannot afford to live in their homes. Children are not forced to move districts or communities. And I see this as doing my part to try to make that difference, to try to help facilitate this. And, you know, I want to do my part to help Mountain View. Yeah.
Great. Well, appreciate that. We'll start with the questions. So first one is, what is the role or purpose of the RHC?
This is a good one. It's also pretty easy. Laws don't interpret themselves. When you write something into law, you cannot account for every circumstance or situation that will come up that might happen. So you set up a purpose. You give findings for why you're trying to do something, and you say what you're trying to do. In the case of the Community Stabilization and Fair Rent Act, they are trying to stabilize rents in order to preserve a sense of community and prevent displacement. And the Rental Housing Committee is a part of that law. It is codified to be able to have a set of people who understand what they're doing, like what the law is trying to do, and act to fill in gaps, to make sure that everything works, to fulfill the spirit of the law, to try to help the city. Because you need people. You, council members, are people who try to take something that exists and make it work in a way that continues. And that is what the RHC is for, is the Rental Housing Committee is to help people with rents. They set the AGA, they write rules and regulations about the contents of the CSFRA. It is a body of people whose job it is to take the time to understand what is out there, what laws affect the city, what is in the charter, and apply it.
Thank you. Next question. What particular skills or experiences make you qualified to do the work?
So I've been coming to City Council and the Rental Housing Committee for years now. I show up to every meeting that I can, and in COVID, I've been joining the Zoom for every meeting that I can, because I'm that kind of nerd. This is something that I love. This is something I enjoy. I have read through the CSFRA multiple times, and I reference it when I can in order to try to bring clarity to when people have questions. Hey, what about the RHC? What about the CSFRA affects me? I like to think that I'm usually able to point them to what text matters, or find the case law in the courts or in the law in the state that is impacting them, because it's something that it's a skill that I have that I like to be able to help people with. I'm an engineer. I'm very pedantic. I read deep into things and try to make sense of it, but also housing, I think, is fundamental to people's existence. It's key to their survival. And it's something that I have taken on myself as a priority that I like to focus on, is understanding people's circumstances and trying to do what I can to help.
Great. Let's see. Next question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the council, city council?
Oh yeah, this one's my favorite. I know all of you. We've talked many times. I've seen how the current rental housing committee and previous versions of the body have interacted with the city council. I think that the interaction between city staff, the city council, and the rental housing committee is key to being functional as a city, as a body. I think that we are one community collectively, and that oftentimes there needs to be interaction between the council and the committee. That when you have a study session in one body, oftentimes it is preceded by one and the other, because it is something that either the council needs to do, whether it be put a charter amendment on the ballot to change the contents of the CSFRA, or to set up new standards for health and safety for housing to be able to impact the rental community, which is something that changes how the RHC is able to adapt for the AGA and for any petitions through the hearing process. And so I think up to this point, there has been, there's been some issues in trying to coordinate that process, where the RHC would send a memo to council, council would respond. The CSFRA subcommittee last year is an example of that. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement, but I think that's something everyone here can do.
Thank you. And last question, how would you encourage maintenance beyond the minimum for rental properties within the parameters of the CSFRA?
Yeah, this is my third favorite question. If I had, okay. So when it comes to capital improvement pass-throughs and other forms of encouraging of capital investment in properties, I think it's something that the RHC has some powers to do, but is not tasked to do directly. I think that when it comes to soft story retrofits, which has been a big issue that has come before council several times, because it is a risk that we have for a lot of people in the city where their homes are not safe and secure from seismic events right now, that the first step would be to amend the health and safety code. And the second step would be for the RHC to, under section 1710, make a speedy process for upward adjustment for landlords who need to invest capital in their places to comply with local ordinances, as is defined in the law. When it comes to luxury improvements or improvements above and beyond the minimum, or the improvements that are required by the codes, that one is tougher because it's explicitly called out as something that is not allowed in the CSFRA. But with that section could be amended in the charter by popular vote. It's also something that can be gotten around in some ways through private contract, although that one is more difficult.
Great. Any clarifying questions from council members for Mr. Brown? No?
Come on, guys.
All right. Well, would you like to close out?
No, I'm just glad to finally be able to try to step up and help out in a more official capacity. I think I've been in the audience long enough, and I want to be able to do my part. And yeah, I'd be happy to work with you. All right.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time and for your interest. And we'll be most likely making a recommendation this evening that we'll vote on at a regular council meeting. So we will let you know our decision soon. Thanks. Thanks, and stay safe and healthy. Bye. Let's see. So let me see if Mr. Dempsey's back.
He is under the phone number, Mayor.
Okay, great. Could we bring him in?
Yes, I'll go ahead and bring him in.
Thank you.
Actually, it's looking like perhaps because he's joining by phone, I can allow him to speak, but it doesn't look like I can move him over. Let's see if this will work. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Oh, Mr. Dempsey, are you with us? Are you able to hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, great. Much clearer.
Wonderful.
We missed seeing your
Terribly
face.
sorry.
We missed seeing your
Sorry
face.
about all the technical stuff. Yeah.
No worries.
It's working from home.
Yes. Well, thank you again.
So-
Thanks for coming back to us. Let's start over. We can start from the top. So if you'd like to offer an opening statement, that'd be great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, my apologies for the technical difficulties. I think I've already burned a couple of minutes, so let me just say shortly what brings me to applying for RHC. Again, as someone who's not a rental housing expert, it's just a combination of public service, I think, empathy, and community. I spent years working in public service, but at the state level, and the last years had to move back to Mountain View to take care of elders, and so I joined the private sector, but I miss it. And so the part of me just kind of wants to go back to being part of helping, a city run itself. But COVID kind of made me rethink how important that is. Made me think it was more important, frankly, because as a tech worker, I'm very lucky. I get to work from home. Many people that live in Mountain View, as you know well, don't have that luxury. Folks that I interact with all the time, that I check in on when I go to see them at work, and they're worried about whether they're going to have a job in a month. And being mindful of my own privilege has kind of impressed upon me, I think, how important it is to look out for other folks too. And I think this is one way, I think many, to practice that. And I think finally, just by the time we're done with COVID and the recession that we're seeing because of it, I don't want to see Mountain View change. I don't want to see a lot of the people that I know and care about, who just have different employment situations. I don't want to see them leave. And so part of it for me is merely trying to keep Mountain View a town that I love and want to be a part of. So I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you. We'll go into our questions. Our first one is, what is the role or purpose of the RHC?
Sure. And I think many people have already spoke well to this, but it is fundamentally an administrative and an adjudicative function. It is emphatically not legislative. And so what that means is trying to make the CSFRA work as efficiently and effectively within the bounds of its creation. And that, that means promulgating the regs and making sure the program's running well. I think a lot of it involves checking in with the population that's affected by it and seeing, hey, is it working? Is it doing what it's supposed to? Are people being protected? Are units leaving the market? It is a bit of filling in the cracks from a regulatory standpoint, but it's also checking to make sure that the system that's been designed works. But again, it is administering the law. It is not superseding it, and that's a responsibility I think I'd be very mindful of.
Great. And then let's see. What particular skills or experiences make you qualified to do the work?
Sure. So I'm an attorney by training, master's in public policy as well, both from Berkeley. And I've spent I spent a little more than 10 years working for the state legislature, actually as a committee consultant. So I ran the privacy committee, and before that, the business professions and consumer protection committee. So I've actually spent a lot of time working with code, reading it, analyzing it, amending it, and explaining it. So it's a form of work that I'm actually quite familiar with, although it's in a different context. And I think that that's generally applicable to this kind of work, although again, it wasn't specifically housing law.
Thank you. And then how do you see the RHC's interaction with the council?
Oh, great question. So it's an independent role. That was spelled out very clearly. And the roles are different, so there shouldn't be much clash there. But I think, government is a team sport, and we're all on the same team. We care about the same people. We're trying to do the same thing. So even while the RHC is independent and the roles are different, I think deep consultation is totally appropriate, particularly because the council has more experience. The council has a kind of a 10,000-foot view of things that are happening. They may know how different parts of the rental market, what's happening in the city. And I think that it's absolutely incumbent upon anybody that works in government to avail themselves of the knowledge, the expertise, and the insight that other folks in government have. Doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but it means you absolutely should listen to people who are smart and people who have experience. And so, to my mind, as I said, it's a team sport, and I would want to be as deeply consultative to learn from people who can see the problem from a different perspective. I think that's really valuable and a best practice in government.
Great, thank you. And finally, how would you encourage maintenance beyond the minimum for rental properties within the parameters of the CSFRA?
Sure. So I guess it depends a little bit about what we mean as maintenance, but I think the general principle would be trying to setting a capped amount that could be an included cost under the fair rate of return. But I think that if we're going to do that, if you're going to have a capped amount that you can include under rate of return, I think it actually would be important to seek out tenant consent. I think having the tenants either ask for or be okay with these upgrades beyond what the code requires, I think that's a really important part of making it part of fair rate of return. I think that's kind of how you make sure that it's a just, necessary, and wanted improvement.
Great. Any clarifying questions from council members? No. Don't see any hands up. So if you'd like to provide a closing statement, Mr. Dempsey.
Sure. Well, members, I appreciate both your time and your patience. And again, my apologies for not being able to get my technology right. I'm grateful for the chance to talk to you, and I hope that I can find a role at some point to be able to serve with the city, whether it's RHC, a different committee somehow. But my hope is to find a way to contribute to the health and well-being of the city. And as I said, I appreciated your time listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you again for your interest and for making the time to join us. And you probably heard this, but we will be making a recommendation most likely this evening that then the council will approve at a regular council meeting. So we will let you know soon what our decision is. Thank you again and thank you for your patience with all the technical issues. This is a whole new world we're in right now, but please stay safe and healthy and take care. We will, let's see, move on. We have, what time is it? It's a little early still. Let me see if Adriana Rositas is with us yet.
I don't see her on the line, Mayor, but Ms. Hanson is, if you would like to take her sooner.
Great, yes, if we could take Ms. Hanson.
Okay, she should be coming over in just a moment.
Hello, Ms. Hanson. Can you hear us? You could unmute yourself. Oh, there you are. Oh,
right.
There we go. Hello.
Oh, well.
No worries.
It's a badge of honor.
Well, thank you so much for your interest in the RHC and for joining us this evening. And thanks for accommodating our time. We're moving a little ahead of schedule, but I think that's
No problem.
a good thing for all of us. So if you'd like to provide an opening statement for a couple of minutes, and then we have 4 questions to ask of you. There might be some clarifying questions after that. And then if you'd like to close out with a statement, that would be great. And please feel free to start when you're ready.
Okay, well, I got involved in even considering this after the June 1st meeting of the Rental Housing Committee. I've been extremely disappointed in both the Rental Housing Committee and Council. And I'll just give you a little history. So I'm a senior in the biggest mobile home park in Mountain View. In 2015, 2016, early 2016, I started the Residents Association for San Diego Villa. And over the years that grew in because of my friends and neighbors who participated and are still participating. That grew into the Mountain View Mobile Home Alliance. And we have 370 members, I think. And we have 8 people on the steering committee from different parks, and we meet every Saturday virtually. So we're a very active organization. And my position is that because I'm the one who handles the database, I know a lot of the people. And because I've been in the park for over 20 years, I already know a lot of the people. I decided to offer to become a candidate for this seat because I kind of feel obligated to all the seniors in the park. As you know, it's the largest population of seniors in Mountain View. They're in the parks. And as you know, we are still uncovered by any kind of rent stabilization. Seniors have been complaining about this since 2001. And you can find this in the collection of the Mountain View Voice, some of the history. One of the significant pieces of history is that in 2003, Sally Liebert got involved with John Vidovich, and she got us or I'm not sure how this happened. She says she didn't do it alone, but we had a rent freeze for 5 years. That is because somebody finally stood up to John Vidovich. And we know that the council is not going to do that. We know the Rental Housing Committee certainly is going to do that. So at any rate, I just want to offer you some perspective on some of those people. I've offered them in oral comments before the council and told you some of their stories. I know you probably don't remember them, but there are a lot of very compromised, disabled, sick people here. And people who are really frightened because Social Security is a fixed income, of course, and the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, is never up to date. In the last 12 years, 4 years, there has been no COLA at all for Social Security. In most of the years, it's between 1.5 and 2%. Just the other day, someone contacted me. She said, I don't have a job because of the pandemic, and I just got this 3.5% increase. You know, that's because of the Rental Housing Committee set that for 2019. We did get involved on that, and I talked to Maria Ahmad this morning. She said, yes, we're going to go to 2.9. Thank you, Rental Housing Committee. Thank you, Maria Ahmad. We don't like John Vidovich much, but we do like all the people who work for him. So anyway, I wanted you to know that there are people in the parks who are very concerned, worried, frightened that as those AGAs pile up over the years, they're worried if they can sell their homes, they won't have anywhere to go. Well, I don't want to go into a long story, but you know, those people could end up on the street in RVs, in cars, somewhere else in the community. I don't know. It's a very stressful situation for people who are having to live beyond their means because they have to pay for their medication. on their credit cards. I've done that. I know what that's like. So I'm very frustrated with the Rental Housing Committee in particular. And so that's why I decided to get involved. That's my opening statement.
Great, thank you. We're going to go into our questions. First one is, what is the role or?
Well, one of the roles is to ensure a fair rate of return for housing providers. And I'll confine my remarks to the mobile home parks because that's what I know best. We have 6 parks. We have 5 owners. I have no problem with the Calchiks, the Callas, the Okus, the Moores, but those folks in the smaller parks are going to have problems because their owners, their heirs, once they pass on, are probably going to try to sell the park, and that is a national trend now. That just today there was a Bloomberg News item saying, yeah, mobile home investors are just, skyrocketing because they know that this is a really good deal. People are defenseless. They will be able to raise the rent on people, and they will be able to make a massive profit. So people are scared, in short. But the fair rent of return is fine. What we don't want is an outrageous rent of return, which is what the Sahara and Santiago Villa are giving their owner. And that is another thing I made in an oral comment. I did a little project saying finding the rentals and figuring out how much money our park owner for those 2 parks is making. And I don't want to go into details now, but in short, I feel like the residents of these 2 parks should not be having any AGA at all, 0, because he is making so much money. That is an unfair. That is something that the Rental Housing Committee should confront and probably want. The other thing is, yes, it's supposed to do a fair administration and make decisions between housing providers and tenants. And it hasn't been doing that. It has been biased for the life of the Rental Housing Committee. There has been bias. And I am not optimistic. I don't know what's going to happen, but at least we're rid of Tom Means. He was the worst of the worst.
So I'm going to ask you. We are now on a time schedule. So if you could.
Okay. I'm sorry. I
That's all right.
Have killed my video here. There it is.
And I have a hand up.
I will save you some time. I don't want to answer the 4th question. That's not.
Okay. Actually, Councilmember McAllister has his hand up, so let me go to him.
Yeah, thanks. So B, a question is, you have a property owner that's pretty interesting to work with. How would you, when you represent them, do you think that the other property mobile home owners who are fair and reasonable might be penalized in some way going forward with whatever comes out and their tenants?
That's such a broad question. I don't really know how to answer that because yes, that's possible. But I also hear, and this is rumor, I don't know, that Mr. Vidovich is providing legal services for some of those owners. And I probably even shouldn't say that, but I think that is possible. I don't want to endanger those owners who are doing the right thing. Frank Kalchek in particular has a very happy bunch of residents at his home, his park. So yes, I think that is a possibility, but I don't know how we would even address that question because the devil is in the details, basically.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll go on to this next question. What particular skills or experiences make you qualified to do the work?
Well, I've been a technical writer for almost 30 years now, so I have a technical background. But I haven't done. I do my own taxes. I understand financial spreadsheets. I understand legalese. I've learned to understand legalese through these years of watching council and RHC. So I would say I have some personal experience. I don't have work experience. One thing that rankles me, I have to say, because it is just something that Adam Schiff said the other day, really interests me. He was concerned about the fact that the Congress isn't getting security in-person briefings. They're getting it in writing. He said you can wordsmith a document to be literally correct but completely misleading, and that is something that is relevant here to all of the legalese is really difficult, and particularly at that June 1st meeting where we tried to understand what was going on. It took a long time. And it's very frustrating, not just to me, but the entire community here. They don't understand. We don't understand. And it's probably designed that we won't understand.
Next question is, how do you see the RHC's interaction with the City Council?
I see it as sad right now. We know of one RHC member who has exposed his bias by sending email to two of the council members. And it has been suspected over the years that he has been completely a rubber stamp vote for certain council members. And that email kind of really, betrayed his bias. What I would do, and if I'm appointed, and I think he won't appoint me, but I'll just make this offer. I would, that council member routinely votes with the housing providers, landlords, whatever you want to say. I would nullify that person's vote by doing the exact opposite. So I would want to completely take out both my opinion and his opinion, and leave the forum of 3, which is the quorum is required in section 1709, that you can have 3 members make all of the decisions. So that would be my offer to correct some of the bias on the council, that to leave the decisions to the 3 members who were left.
And then there was a 4th question. I'll read it.
And I won't address that because that is not in my wheelhouse, and I don't want to just spew,
Okay. Would you like to offer a closing? Oh, well, actually, are there any clarifying questions from council members? No? Would you like to offer a closing statement, Ms. Hanson?
I do have low expectations, and I have to say that I feel that my low expectations are amplified by all of the people I see around me and talk to all the time. That nobody really expects that this problem of mobile home rent stabilization for mobile homes is ever going to get fixed. If it is, we would have a, if we aren't covered by CSFRA, we could be covered by an ordinance, but only if it was written by an attorney who understood mobile home law. There is one in San Jose. His name is Bruce Stanton. He's written ordinances for many cities in California. That is so if we're not covered by CSFRA and we're not covered by ordinance, which I kind of don't expect either one to happen, things are just going to go on as they have been. Sorry.
Well, thank you for your interest and thank you for your time. As you've probably heard, we will most likely make a recommendation this evening that'll go to the council at a council meeting for ratification. So we will let you know our decision shortly. And
thank you for listening.
And thank you for your time. And please stay safe and healthy and take care. Our last applicant, Adriana Rositas, I don't see her in the attendee box. City Clerk, any notice from her?
Oh, and we were trying to reach out to her earlier. We have not been successful. So her appointment was at 7. So she has not been on the line yet.
Okay. And I know we had one more applicant who we knew would not be able to make it this evening. So
correct.
Does council want to go into deliberation? You want to take a short break? Let's go right into deliberation. Okay. All right. If anyone would like to start us, and we'll entertain a motion at any time as well. Councilmember Ramirez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate all of the applicants, and I think there were quite a number of impressive applications submitted, and I think the interviews were very helpful in differentiating among the candidates. And I appreciate anyone's interest in serving on one of the more challenging appointed bodies that we have in the city. So thank you all for your participation. So I think as I've expressed in the handful of other appointments that we've done, I do have a general preference for reappointing incumbents if they've done a good job. If there isn't some compelling reason to not provide somebody who is currently serving in a given capacity. If there isn't some challenge associated with their service, or perhaps there's a candidate who is so compelling that we could not fail to appoint that one just because it's maybe an opportunity we wouldn't otherwise have it. If we don't have circumstances like that, then I have a general preference to maintain the institutional sort of memory and the cohesiveness of a given body. I thought that Nicole's application was very strong. I thought her interview was good. And I'll confess, I don't regularly watch the RHC meetings, but from what I understand, her attendance has been pretty good and she participates. And I think has been an asset to the body. So my recommendation would be to appoint her to fill the balance of the term that she currently is sort of serving in now. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to that effect.
Great. So there is a motion. Thank you, Councilmember Ramirez. Vice Mayor?
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to second Councilmember Ramirez's motion, as well as echo his appreciation and gratitude for all our applicants tonight, those who we got to see virtually or got to hear virtually, or those who just applied but couldn't make the interviews. I know we're living in really unique times, and so just appreciate that we had so much interest from people who want to serve for this volunteer position. As Councilmember Ramirez was mentioning, Nicole has been serving in this role since the resignation of Miss Honey, and has been doing the work of an RHC committee member. And with that, I take comfort in her serving out the remainder of the term. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that was a second, Vice Mayor? Great, thank you. Councilmember Hicks?
Well, I can't third the motion, but I basically agree. And I was, in addition to, I do think that experience is very important, and particularly because we may see some turnover on the committee within the next year. I think with the kind of particularities of what the RHC goes through, I would really like to have somebody who's up and running. In addition, I was impressed that Nicole's application was one of the few that went through the differences she said that the committee would be facing under COVID. And since there's, potentially a lot of housing vulnerability and homelessness, I was happy to see that she was looking at the new phase we might be going through and thinking about it in detail. So, and I also agree with what the previous council members have said, that I appreciated all the applications. And if I could, I would put everybody on the RHC. I wish more people could serve, but I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Matichek.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad that we did these interviews. I was very impressed with many of the candidates, more so, than I was with necessarily the applications. So I am really pleased we have such a great pool from which to choose. And I do, however, appreciate that Nicole has been serving as the alternate, but fully participating in the meetings and voting. And I have watched a few of the meetings, and I think she's done a nice job. I don't doubt that others could also do a nice job. And so I am supportive of having Nicole as the regular member to serve out the term. And I appreciate that so many people applied and we have such a great pool. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other council members with comments? Yes, Councilmember Clark.
I was just going to say I agree as well with what's been said, and I'll support the motion. Just a question for the mayor: Do we need to address the alternate seat that would, or at this point, or is that something we do later? Or, well, obviously that'll end up being vacant.
Yes, my understanding is we can, or we do, or can, or cannot, or do not have to appoint this evening. I'd like to go ahead and just take this motion, and then if there's interest in another motion, that's fine. I was just going to add that in light of the length of this appointment, it might be fine just to appoint the voting member this evening. But we can discuss that after this vote. And did you have other comments, Councilmember Clark? No? Okay. Great. I would just add too that I was extremely impressed by the applicants, and the number and then the quality. And I hope that those who don't get selected this evening will continue to stay interested. There are many openings that come up along the way. We will be doing some recruiting for some of our other commissions and advisory boards as well. So I hope that those who came forward this evening will consider other opportunities, if not this one. So with that, do we need to do a roll call vote, or could we just do, since this is a study session, a show of hands?
That would be fine.
Great. So the motion is for Nicole Haines-Li, sorry if I pronounced that last name wrong, to be the voting member, and that was motioned by Councilmember Ramirez, seconded by the Vice Mayor. All those in favor, if you can raise your hands, that would be great. And I see unanimous. So that is the motion that carries. Any other motions or discussion? No? Okay, great. Well, that concludes our interviews and our study session. Will this be, City Clerk, do you have a sense of when this will be brought to the full council? Will it be for Tuesday?
It will be for Tuesday. So very shortly that agenda will be posted, and that will be included.
And then will Ms. Liv say if she's approved, start immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she would.
Great.
And then we'll reach out to the other applicants as well. Some of them are still on the line, but we'll reach out with that information as well.
Great. All righty. Okay. Any other? I've got my agenda. Do we have anything else to do this evening? I don't think so. So with that, we stand adjourned at 7:14. Please have a great long Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you on Tuesday evening for our regular council meeting. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy. Please take care. Good night.